Okay, I'm down here on a Sunday morning, still morning. I'm not real tickled to be here, but I swore to myself I'd get at least a couple of more of these made. So this will be ready for the first exam. Okay, Forming a New Life. Chapter 3. I left this one pretty much alone. I'm not going to talk much about genetic stuff as far as genetic testing and such. Okay, fertilization. Do know what conception fertilization is. One of several 100 million sperm connect up with one of several 100,000 ova that drops and produces a zygote. If this zygote is viable, if everything happens the way it should, it will implant in the uterine wall and become a pregnancy. If not, it's flushed away. Number of you were commenting about multiple births. Major differences to think about. Monozygotic is one egg and one sperm cause the fertilization, and for some reason very early in cell division of what might have been a single child or zygote, it splits into two and starts developing as twins. They are 100% identical as far as genes. There are environmental impacts that may change the way that one of them looks or something if mom gives, or one of them gets most of the nourishment in your utero. The same is true of dizygotic twins as far as one getting more than the other does. But these are two different eggs from two different sperm. They can happen a month apart, but generally they happen at the same time. A woman just woman just drops two eggs instead of one. Becomes more common as women get older. They are, as far as genetics go, pretty much just like any other set of siblings. There has been a rise in multiple birth rates. Women are holding off longer to have children, so that increases the chances that their eggs will split or they'll drop two eggs. One result of this problem is that young women are now more often having some eggs harvested so that they can have them frozen and thawed out later when they're older and have their careers going and such. Fertility drugs and fertility technologies also have contributed to the increase in multiple births. Pregnancy itself has a number of fairly risky factors to it. Having other developing fetuses increases the problems. It does increases a number of risk factors and consequences. So it's not something to be fearful about, but it is something to kind of keep in mind, particularly when you move up to triplets, quadruplets, and such. DNA. A number of you did point out that it is the father who determines the sex of the infant, not the mother, because all she has is X's to give. All he has is he has an X and a Y. Again, this is simplistic, but it's a reasonable explanation. So do know what chromosomes are. Coils of DNA carrying genes, autosomes, 22 pairs. There's 23 pair in all. 22 pair of autosomes, which have genes that deal with other things besides sex. And then you have the sex chromosomes, which are primarily dealing with sex. So one pair. Dominant heterozygosity, I drew that up on the board. That was a big B for brown-eyed, a little b for blue-eyed. Brown-eyed is dominant, so if a person has a brown-eyed allele, a matching gene, and a blue-eyed allele, what you will see is a brown-eyed person most of the time. If to see somebody with blue eyes, again, this is real simple, but you really need 2 blue-eyed alleles. Alleles are pairs of genes that act together on the chromosome to cause whatever effect it's supposed to cause. Homozygous, you have 2 identical copies of a gene, like 2 little b's for blue-eyed or 2 big B's for brown-eyed. Heterozygous would be a person with brown eyes and a brown-eyed allele and a blue-eyed allele. Most things, most complex traits and characteristics of human beings involve multiple genes. So polygenic, multiple genes, multiple beginnings are what we're looking at most of the time. That's why we are not going to find a gay gene or a autism gene or something like that. So how is the gene expressed? What do we see? Genotype, the genetic type, is what the alleles say. This is the big 2 homozygous, ability to curl the tongue, or heterozygous, ability to curl the tongue. If they'd had 2 little d's, they wouldn't be able to curl their tongue. I think that's how it worked. I did it with the brown-eyed and blue-eyed, so use that one instead. Phenotype is what we actually see. So in a blue-eyed person, we're pretty sure that they have 2 blue-eyed alleles, but in a brown-eyed person, it could be either homozygous brown-eyed or heterozygous brown-eyed. We will not know for a fact until that person has an offspring that maybe has blue eyes. Multifactorial. Now, we just talked about polygenic, many genes. Multifactorial, many factors. Transmission says that experience environment modifies the expression of a genotype. I gave the example of schizophrenia. We may have people who are inclined towards schizophrenia, but stress and other factors are really important in whether a person becomes schizophrenic or not. It's not just a genetic thing. I'm not even going to get into epigenesis. Don't have the time. So do know the difference between dominant abnormal gene and a recessive abnormal gene. A dominant one will show up if it is present. A recessive one will not show up as often if it is covered by a normal dominant gene. A person with that would be a carrier. And you would need 2 alleles, 2 identical recessive abnormal genes, or to show the abnormality. Inheritance can come through any of your autosomes or your chromosomes, but certain ones of them are sex-linked. So these are specifically disorders linked to genes on the sex chromosome. I discussed red-green color blindness in class. It is pretty common in males. It's the most common color blindness. It is much more common in males than females. Hemophilia has historically been almost totally a male thing because a female with hemophilia would not survive. And furthermore, most males with hemophilia, died before they were able to reproduce. That is changing with treatments, injections of clotting factor that is keeping young men alive, and they are probably reproducing, and they may be reproducing some females that are also hemophiliac. So generally, sex-linked defects impact males much more than females. A carrier, generally the mom, is somebody who has one recessive gene but can pass that recessive gene, abnormal recessive gene, on to their offspring. Chromosomal abnormalities occur in errors in cell division. If you remember your biology videos that hopefully you saw in school. And it does result in missing or extra chromosomes. Most of us have 46. That's considered the norm. But some people have 45, some people have 47. The fewer or the more, if you go very far either way from 46, generally the organism becomes unviable and is terminated, spontaneously aborted. So these errors also can happen on any of the chromosomes. Down syndrome, trisomy 21. Trisomy 21 is actually one of 3 types of Down syndrome. The others get a little bit more complicated as to their cause and such. So we just use the most common, and it is the most common autosomal disorder. And it is responsible for 40% of moderate to severe mental retardation. They're people, but they tend to be pretty fun people to work with. Genetic counseling, since we have done a systematic study of the genome and understand quite a bit about what genes contribute what to what conditions, really sometimes it would be very positive for the prospective parent to check to see if they do carry any abnormalities. There are, if you can afford it, great, go for it. There are some extra risk increases. If you have already had a child with a defect, then a second child with a defect is increased, the risks are increased. If you see a defect fairly commonly in your family history, that's something you need to worry about. So you might want to check for it and Google your ethnicity and find out what types of errors, defects that might concentrate in people of your background. Behavioral genetics is just trying to figure out what is the nature, what is the nurture, what is the heredity, what is the environmental influences on behaviors and such. Heritability is the statistical estimate of heritable influence on a trait variance in a population. So what heritability is it seems that both schizophrenia and sexual orientation have a reasonable amount of heritability to them, meaning that for whatever reason, biologically, maybe not just on a genetic, but on an interactive genetic and uterine environmental hormone interaction, these people are more geared towards sexual orientation. We're geared towards those things, and whether we're going to have the likelihood of having schizophrenia is impacted. So it's not just a genetic thing. Measuring heritability, family studies, what you do is you look at how similar the siblings are. You compare those siblings to cousins, aunts, uncles, and then further removed cousins. And what you're looking for is how often that characteristic is expressed in very closely related groups compared to less closely related groups. And then compare those to the general population to see if you've got an increase Does it have to do, as you get further out in the family, you should see any particular characteristic less often. Doesn't always happen, though. Adoption studies help because it allows to see, to get away from at least the direct and family environment, so that these people are not being raised by their biological parents. And where they resemble their biological parents, you would look more at heredity. Where they are more similar to their adopted parents and family, then that's what you would look at as more environmental. But again, these are mostly indicators, not hard, fast rules. Twin studies, looking at concordance rates, how often one has a trait compared to the other twin having a trait. If it happens more in monozygotic than dizygotic, then we're probably looking more at genetic. If it happens as equally, it may be more environmental. The two that I mentioned earlier, the sexual orientation and schizophrenia, both show about a 50% concordance rate. This means that if it was 100% genetic and not environmental at all, you would expect 100% correlation. Every time one twin was gay, the other gay would be twin. Whenever one twin was not gay, the other one would not be gay. But it shows about a 50% of the time. This indicates some genetic and some environmental impacts. The same is true of people with schizophrenia, twins who have schizophrenia. So in the vast majority of the time, they're working together. Reaction range, potential variation in a trait means, depending on the environmental influences, how much, the next slide is on intelligence, so how much does environment impact a potential or the expression of a potential intelligence that is determined by genes. Canalization is restrictions on the range of trait development. The one I used in class was I have a pen that says, never try to teach a pig to sing. It wastes your time and irritates the pig. The pig does not have the ability to sing. I don't have the ability to flap my arms and fly away. So I'm stuck within those ranges. So here's a demonstration of the reaction range as far as research has determined. If you notice, the less intelligent a person starts out, the less range there is. This is kind of unfortunate, but it is, again, what research shows up so far. Have a decent idea of what genotype environmental correlations. Correlations means how often do they go together. So we tend to gravitate towards things that we liked and things we're good at. Our parents tend to reinforce things that we are good at. So this is just the steps from what our parents urge us to do or the opportunities they provide to us to reinforce certain behaviors, moving on to other people, and then when we start choosing what we want to do ourselves. So passive may be your parents notice or that you are good, you are musical. I probably won't edit that out. It takes too much time. So they put you in music lessons or piano lessons early in your life. You may hate it, maybe not. As you do better at this, maybe people reinforcing what you're doing, you're playing well, or maybe you're not playing well, And so you get responses from people in the environment, and that may inhibit you some, or it may want you to do it more. Then if at the end of, when you grow up enough that your parents can't tell you what to do all the time, if you continue piano or maybe other musical instruments or something like that, then that is you niche picking. So this is just kind of the steps, growing up and socializing and such. Non-shared environment is just the different environment that each child is raised in. Siblings tend to have more shared environment, but many factors, parental experience, money, mom working or not, many factors will impact each child differently. So whereas they do have a shared environment, lots of the impacts are very unique to each child. Here are a few of the ones that we know that are influenced by heredity and environment. We'll talk about them several times in the future. Have a very basic understanding of the prenatal development. As far as it goes, have an idea of what's going on. Germinal stages prior to implantation. Embryo, much is going on here. Really, to get a decent idea of what's happening, watch that video, Life's Greatest Miracle, because I'm really not going to cover it very much. The embryonic stage is the first 2 months. This is when most miscarriages, spontaneous abortions will occur. This is early enough that if there is something majorly wrong, generally on a genetic level, with a developing embryo, then the body system says cut it loose and try again, and try to get one that'll live. Then the fetal stage is the last 7 months. Watch that video, it's worth it. Now let me go ahead and say, as far as maternal factors go, there are no guarantees. You can do everything right. You can read, you can educate yourself, you can eat, exercise, be careful about what you're exposed to. You can do it all right, and there's no guarantee at all that you won't have a child with a birth defect. However, if you do engage in, and there are women who, we don't know exactly why most of these things cause problems. What we do know is that they increase the likelihood of defects, teratogens. Those are things that cause defects. They don't cause all the time, but most of them we don't understand them well enough to tell individual women, yes, it's safe for you to do that, or no, it's totally not safe for you to do that. But I will go ahead and say, if you have a child with a disability, a defect, the chances are real good that you are going to feel guilty about it for the rest of your life, whether there is any real blame to go to you or not. But if you have behaved in a way that increased the likelihood of a defect and your child is born with one, then not only do you get to feel guilty, but they get to live with that defect for their life. So when it comes to it, these are the things that can cause problems. Look at some of the problems that they can cause in your book. I think there's a video on it too. Do a little research. Before you put something into your body when you're pregnant or you think you're pregnant, you really need to check it out. Some things can't be helped. Women get pregnant sometimes when they're older, and that increases problems. Stress is also a major problem. Pregnancy is stressful at the best of times. So really, educating yourself hopefully will not cause more fear. It will help you reduce your fear level. Education and understanding knowledge tends to do that sort of thing. Sometimes it can't be helped also. Chemicals, a lot of those hit poor women a lot more often than wealthier women because of where the neighborhoods are and what may be sprayed around there or dumped or have been in the past. Paternal factors, some things are temporary, some things are long-term as far as affecting the quality of sperm. I would say that the father has less of a determination on a birth defect than the woman does, just in the fact that the less healthy sperm will hopefully not compete well against the healthy sperm. But if you have lots and lots of unhealthy sperm, then it does cause problems. It does increase the risks for sure. Lead stays in your system for a long, long time. Can impact your sperm. Marijuana, tobacco, both can impact them more on a short-term basis. Alcohol also, radiation, definitely on the sperm that are already there. But the thing is males generally replace their sperm in 3 months. So anything that is damaged will be available for about 3 months, but then it will be gone usually. So again, that's one of the reasons that since we renew our sperm pretty regularly and often, there tends to be less of a risk of problems. But since these things can cause more problems in the sperm, sometimes even in the sperm production, which means you're going to have a lot of problems, they can increase the likelihood of defects. As far as paternal age, over 50, I think, has been correlated with children with autism and with schizophrenia. So men can generally reproduce until they die, but it might be better not to. Larry King. Monitoring is important. This has come a long way, but I'm hearing a few things that kind of worry me some. Ultrasound has become very common. It is routine. It is probably, besides maternal blood test, is the safest for mom and baby. And that's kind of really what I want you to understand is which of these are invasive, what being invasive means. So when we look at the two uninvasive or minimally invasive, ultrasound and maternal blood tests, these are very common, used all the time. I recommend them. The blood tests, they just take some of your blood and check for some of the markers of defects. The ultrasound looks at it, and they've got those neat ones now that look like the baby's outside of the womb. Those are real cool. They always look like Rorschachs when we were doing ours. If you know what a Rorschach test is, it was just kind of like looking at the film, the picture, and trying to figure out what was what. Kind of one of those Jesus in a tortilla or something. So it was very plain once they pointed it out to us, but what can you say? But the problem with ultrasound is it does vibrate, and it actually heats up what it's looking at. So every time you do it, it heats up the baby. And what I've been hearing, there are now photography studios who are doing this without the necessary training to make sure they don't broil your baby's brain. But also, it seems to be that they're, at least in some females, they are now doing these every week or two, and multiply, with really no reason behind it besides, as far as I can tell, racking up a bunch of insurance charges. And if it didn't impact the infant, I wouldn't worry about it. But there are some studies that indicating that there is subtle and maybe not so subtle brain differences in fetuses that have been ultrasounded too often. So I think this is something. If your doctor wants you to go down and get an ultrasound every month and there's no real risk factors, then you might want to talk to another doctor. I'll leave that up to you, though. Amniocentesis, chorionic villus sampling, and embryoscopy. Well, they use the embryoscope to do that video, Life's Greatest Miracle. The problems with these is that they are inserting foreign objects into the uterine environment, and these do include the risks of premature birth, spontaneous abortion, infection, damage to the infant are much higher with these than if they don't happen. So this is another one of those. If you have a doctor, and I don't trust doctors totally. Some of them own the testing facilities that they send people to have tests done. So they get more money when they run tests. So if there are risk factors, then yes, you may need to have amniocentesis done. Mother over 40, history of offspring with Down syndrome. There are a number of reasons why you might need to have these done, one of these done, but make sure you understand, make sure you agree, and maybe get a second doctor's opinion, because it's your baby and it's you, and your doctor is responsible, but you're the one who ultimately pays. Prenatal care is very important. We're pretty sad as far as our education support of pregnant women, particularly poor pregnant women, poor single pregnant women. If we were better at education, maybe there wouldn't be so many. They'd know what to do to keep from getting pregnant. But that's something a little later on. These things do improve the chances of positive outcome and good health. Not evenly distributed among SES ethnic groups. Wealthy and white beats being poor and black, poor and Hispanic. Here's some of the prenatal care as far as across races. Cubans may be real small because a lot of the Cubans who came over here were very wealthy. So really, yes, get in early to a doctor once you know you're pregnant. Get in there, find out what you need to do, listen to them, get online, educate yourself. Have a decent idea. Again, it gets kind of scary, but when you first start hearing about it, oh God, all these things can happen. Well, once you get a realization of what can, what probably won't, and the likelihood of these things occurring, it hopefully will make you feel